Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hope you guys are having a great Monday. Apologies for not being a little bit active and consistent on the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Got some exams I'm trying to crush, and also trying to stay up to date on all the schoolwork to finish out strong for the 2025-26 school year and to close out this spring semester on a high note. So, apologies for not being a little bit active and consistent on the Hockey Talk with TG podcast, but it is what it is. Today we are going to be giving out our second round Stanley Cup playoff predictions. So the NHL just dropped a Stanley Cup playoff second chance bracket that I'm going to show you guys, and we can check that out together. Um, and I can just give out my second round predictions to you guys. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see it. So this is my this is the screen for the Stanley Cup playoffs second chance bracket. We're going to go ahead and play now. So this is what the second round looks like. We got the Avalanche taking on the Wild. Avalanche and Wild played game one, which was a high scoring affair in game one. Then we got the Golden Knights and Anaheim Ducks. They played a game one tonight. And then we got the Buffalo Sabres and the Montreal Canadiens. We're looking forward to that series. Their game one, I believe, starts either tomorrow or Thursday or Wednesday. Either tomorrow or Wednesday. I think it's when their game one starts. Then we got the Canes taking on the Philadelphia Flyers in the second round. The Hurricanes played their game one, I believe, on Saturday against the Flyers, and they won 3-0. So second round started on Saturday with that game one between the Flyers and the Hurricanes. And what a second round slate we got on our hands for today. So without further ado, we'll give out our Stanley Cup playoff predictions. So we'll start off with the Buffalo Sabres taking on the Montreal Canadiens in round one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So both teams, shockingly, getting past the first round and beating their respective opponents. The Sabres beat the Bruins in 6 games in the first round, while the Habs beat the Lightning in 7 games in their first round series. Overall, though, this is the eighth playoff meeting all time between the two teams, and first since 1998, where the Sabres had swept the Habs in the 1998 Stanley Cup playoffs in the second round. I'm pretty sure the same thing won't happen again this year because these are two stacked teams. Could see this going to 7 games, to be honest, between the two teams. But overall, though, the Canadians have had the Sabres number. They won 4 out of their seven playoff series meets up to this point. So we, we are in for one heck of a ride, guys. Both teams also split up the regular season series. Both of them were 2-2-0 in their season series meets. Wasn't really a lot of goal scoring then. The first meeting was on October 20th, where the Habs won 4-2 at home, and then the second meeting was on January 15th. It was a 5-3 Sabres win at home, and then January 22nd, it was a 4-2 Sabres win on the road, and then on January 31st to close out the season series meets, it was a 4-2 Canadiens win on the road. So every game was decided by 2 goals or fewer. So it kind of tells you what we're kind of anticipating, what we're kind of dealing with. So I kind of talked about this off air, and I thought maybe it might be a coin flip or a toss up rather between these two teams. I can see this going to 7 games, if not a 6 game series, then a 7 game series. So I'm looking forward to watching this playoff series nonetheless. Sabres looking to continue on what has been a magical Cinderella type of year for them. we weren't expecting this team to be in the playoffs, and here they are already in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs after winning their playoff series against the Boston Bruins in 6 games, which is the first playoff series win for the Sabres since 2007 when they won their first round playoff series against the New York Islanders. And the Sabres, not only that, but they also won the Atlantic Division title in the regular season with a 50-23-9 record with 109 points. So I don't know. Everybody's hopping on the Sabres bandwagon, myself included. Just might be on the Sabres bandwagon, but yeah, it is what it is. It's amazing to see what they're doing up until this point. For the Canadiens, they are coming off a dramatic Game 7 upset win over the Tampa Bay Lightning, winning their first playoff series since 2021. And ironically, they took on the Tampa Bay Lightning in the 2021 Stanley Cup Final, and they lost to the Lightning in the Stanley Cup Final. So they get their revenge against them 5 years later, only this being the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And also, it happened in Tampa because in the 2021 Stanley Cup final, the last game took place in Tampa. That was a 5-game series with Tampa Bay Lightning winning it, of course. And the game was in Tampa when Tampa won the Stanley Cup in 2021. Fast forward 5 years later, the NHL's back to its OG format and not the weird division format that it had in 2020, 2021 because of COVID. The Canadiens beat the Lightning in 7 games in Tampa Bay. Only this time, like I said, this being the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, and they did it. They won this game despite being heavily outshot, heavily outscored, and heavily outplayed. They were resilient through it all, and they had a lot of opportunistic scoring in that Game 7. The Habs were outshot 29-9 in that game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And if you take a look at the shot attempts were 46-36 Tampa, and the scoring chances were 28-10 Tampa, and the high danger scoring chances were 6-2 Tampa. So that right there kind of tells you how big of an upset this is, and what a game that we saw between these two teams. But like I said, I'm very excited for these Sabres and Canadiens playoff series. This is two teams with lots of young talent on display. The only difference is Buffalo, they're the team that wants to play fast, generate chances, kind of overwhelm you a little bit offensively. When they won in the regular season, they scored 4 or 5 goals. They, dictated the pace. For the Canadiens, they're more about being efficient. They're comfortable getting outshot. They're comfortable. I might even say they're comfortable with being the underdogs. Like, I'm guessing like people want uh them to be doubted or so. They want them to feel like, oh, they can't do this. Like, when I had my first round Stanley Cup playoff predictions, I had the Lightning winning against the Canadiens in 7 games, and ironically, it did not go that well. But it is what it is. But we'll see how it goes. Key players to watch in this series. Nick Suzuki will be one to watch from the Montreal Canadiens. He had 8 points in 4 games in the season series against the Buffalo Sabres. Cole Caulfield, another one, fresh off of a 50-plus goal season. 4 of his goals he had against the Buffalo Sabres in their season series. So he's going to be lining up for sure in the second round series against the Buffalo Sabres. So if that duo between Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield gets going, the Canadiens have a serious offensive edge to, possibly win this series. For the Sabres, it's more. Both of these teams have a lot of depth, but the Sabres kind of showing that like they can score and they can generate the offense, generate the pace and tone of the game. But the question is, can they do it consistently against playoff level defense? Because if you take a look at the, if you take a look at the line combinations, and let me see if I can share this tab. Let me see if I can share this tab with you guys. Let me stop sharing my screen for just 1 second, and I'm gonna see. I want to show you guys line combinations um for the Sabres and Canadiens. Sorry if I'm going a little bit slow today. I got exams this week. I got schoolwork I'm trying to get done. So it's a lot of stuff going on in my head and going on in my mind. But if you take a look at the line combinations between the Canadiens and the Sabres, so the defense is solid. Like I like the top four. They have a good top four defense. So I think maybe I would say it will come down to defense um if you're the Montreal Canadiens. I think this series could, come down to defense. But if you take a look at the Buffalo Sabres, sorry guys, like I said, exam. This is exam week for me, so I think that's probably why I'm going a little bit slow and stuff. But if you take a look at the Sabres defense, actually have a good defense too. I kind of like their defense better than Montreal's per se. Like, I don't know. They have a good defense too. Like their top six is top notch for sure. And Rasmus Dahlin is anchoring that defense for Buffalo, with Lane Husson anchoring the defense for the Montreal Canadiens. So I think for this series, both of these teams have a lot of offense, no question. A lot of offensive power on both sides. But I think for this series, it might come down to the defense to see if the defense will lead them to the victory. The goaltending matchup will be, or most likely be, Jacob Dobes against Ukko Pakalukinen. It's probably going to decide who wins this series as well. So you got to look out for goaltending. Jacob Dobes, he was phenomenal against the Buffalo Sabres in the regular season, finishing with a 2-0 record and a .943 save percentage. Sabres goaltending has been solid, but not necessarily dominant. So if Jacob Dobes can stay hot, if he can play the way that he did in that first round series against Tampa Bay Lightning, the Canadiens could have a real advantage here, especially in those one goal games that we could very well see in this series. Because I don't expect this to be a high scoring affair series between these two teams. But what we can expect is, again, tight games, maybe one goal margins, and maybe one or two overtime games in this series. I think that's what we can very much well expect. And also, more importantly, execution in big moments, because this is not a series where one team is just going to dominate from start to finish. For Buffalo, it's clear for them. The formula is clear. They got to push the pace. They got to generate offense and turn this to a track meet. For Montreal, they got to stay structured, trust the goaltending, and capitalize on your scoring chances. Overall thoughts, though, I am very much looking forward to this series. This is the next generation of hockey right here. This is the next generation of the NHL. These new generation of hockey fans, they're going to be trying to play like Cole Caulfield. They're going to try and play like uh, Zach Benson. They're going to try and play like Nick Suzuki. They're going to try and play like um, Peyton Krebs. You're going to try and play like Tage Thompson. If you're a defenseman, you're going to try and play like Lane Husson. You're going to try and play like Rasmus Dahlin. You're going to try and play like Bo Byram. If you're a goaltender, you're going to try and play like Ukko Pekaluki. You're going to try and play like Jacob Dobes. So this is the next generation of the NHL. And these young, talented hockey players on both sides of these teams are going to put on one heck of a show. And this is going to be a most fun, entertaining series to watch. But with that being said, I'm going to take the Habs in 7 games to win that series against the Buffalo Sabres. Now, I could be wrong. But for now, I'm just going to go with the Habs winning that series against the Buffalo Sabres in 7 games. It's kind of more of a coin flip between those series of the Canadiens and Sabres. So 50% of people might pick the Sabres to win. The other 50 might pick the Habs to win. So it's kind of a coin flip between the two. But now let's move on to the Golden Knights and Ducks playoff series. So the Golden Knights and Ducks will square off in round two of the Stanley Cup playoffs for the first time ever. Both teams beat their respective opponents in 6 games, with the Anaheim Ducks beating the Edmonton Oilers in 6 games, and the VGK Vegas Golden Knights beating the Utah Mammoth in 6 games. Vegas, however, did fail to win a season series matchup against the Anaheim Ducks, going 0-1-2, which could give Anaheim a little bit of confidence heading into this series. The Ducks are already showed that they're confident. They even said it themselves that they can compete with Vegas. They can, probably beat Vegas in this playoff series. They can match up against them very well. But I would probably say with the Golden Knights playoff experience that they had, going to 2 Stanley Cup finals and having won the Stanley Cup in 1 out of 2 of those years, of course, 2023 being the year, and them making the playoffs 8 times in 9 seasons, having advanced to the second round 6 times, could also play a little bit of an edge right there against the Anaheim Ducks, which the Anaheim Ducks, this is their first playoff appearance since 2018. And for some of these guys, or maybe most of them, are going to be playing in their first Stanley Cup playoff game. Either for some or most of these players on the Anaheim Ducks will be playing their second round playoff game, or maybe just making their debut into the playoffs. That's wow. So, and the Ducks, like I said, first playoff appearance since 2018. They last won a playoff series in 2017, ironically being against the Edmonton Oilers. So this could be a little bit of a experience gap. But for the Ducks, they play a more fast, aggressive, offensive-driven style of game. They rely on their scoring depth a lot. For the Golden Knights, they play more structure. They're a defensive team, accelerating at limited high-danger chances. Goaltending matchup we could most likely see is Carter Hart versus Lucas Dahlstall. I don't know how that's going to fare up against each other, but we shall see how this will go. William Karlsson is set to return for the Golden Knights in Game 1 of their second round series against the Ducks tonight, which could be a little bit of a boost for the VGK Vegas Golden Knights. His presence would strengthen their two-way depth. Two-way play and their center depth. It also helps Vegas match with the speed and tone that Anaheim likes to play, which the Ducks' offensive surge stood out in their first round series against the Oilers. They scored power play goals in every game in their first round series against the Edmonton Oilers. They also had multiple players contribute offensively, showing that balanced scoring depth. If that continues, they can challenge Vegas. They could possibly win despite being the underdogs. Overall thoughts on this? This should be a really good series. It'll be a really good series between the Golden Knights, between the Ducks. I think this is all going to come down to offense, maybe defense. But I am looking forward to watching Game 1 of this series tonight. But with that being said, some people might hate me for it. Some people may not. But I'm taking the Ducks in 6 games. I'm taking the Ducks in 6 games against the Golden Knights. I kind of doubt them before already in their first round series against the Edmonton Oilers, and they kind of have shown me that, hey, we're a team that's going to make a run for it. We're a team that can maybe play the underdog kind of role, maybe upset a few fans. And I'm pretty sure some people might be happy with me picking this, considering that I feel like the Golden Knights, right next to the Panthers, are kind of the most hated team in the NHL. I know some people are happy to see that Florida did not make the playoffs this year, especially if you're an Oilers fan, because you lost the team 2 years in a row. So, yeah, I think up next to the Florida Panthers, the Golden Knights might be the most hated team in the NHL. But yeah, I am picking the Ducks in 6 games to win that against the Golden Knights. And let me know you guys' thoughts on it. I'm probably gonna get chirped for that, but yeah, we'll see how that series will go. And now we get to one of my favorite parts of the second round, probably the most entertaining series and probably the most watched series than all the other games happening in the second round between the Minnesota Wild and the Colorado Avalanche. So this is going to be a heck of a match to watch. Like this is going to blow the roof off the place. Minnesota Wild, Colorado Avalanche, two high-powered Central Division powerhouse teams loaded with star talent. This kind of feels more of a Western Conference Finals matchup than it is just the second round matchup almost because this I don't know. It's like a coin flip between these two teams, and they certainly have a lot of star power on both sides. I'd probably say the only difference was or is Colorado can bring top end firepower, while the Minnesota Wild they have the depth, they have the balance um, on their team. So Colorado has the top end firepower. Minnesota has the depth and the balance in the lineup. And what a game one we saw on Sunday night between these two teams. It's winning for the Colorado Avalanche one affair, like I mentioned earlier on in this episode of the Hockey Talk TV podcast. The Avalanche lead this best of seven series 1-0. Fact, it's going to be a lot of star power on display in this series. You got Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar of the Colorado Avalanche. You got Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Boldy, even Quinn Hughes of the Minnesota Wild. And like I said, this kind of feels more of a Western Conference Finals matchup than it is a second round series. How the teams got here, the Avalanche swept the Kings in round one. The Stanley Cup playoffs, putting an end to Andre Kopitar's historic and magnificent NHL career. The Wild had go another way. They beat the Stars in 6 games, and that was because of heavily goaltending on display from Jesper Wallstedt and Philip Gustafsson and the defense as well. I said for that series between Dallas and Minnesota, that's all going to come down to defense, and it might even come down to goaltending, and that's what played out right here, and that's why the Wild are moving on. I did say the Wild could win if the Stars defense is weak, and the Stars defense might be weak without Mil Heiskanen, which can't really say that because he did play all 6 games in that first round series. But I also did say if the defense is strong for both sides, the defense can play a factor in here with or without Mil Heiskanen in the lineup, then the Wild could win the series. And I think goaltending proved another factor too, because Jake Andre has had some bad, terrible playoff performances. Not Stuart Skinner's bad, terrible, but just general bad, terrible playoff. So yeah, it all came down to defense and all came down to goaltending. The regular season series was even between the two teams. Both teams went 2-1-1 in the regular season. The Wild won 3-2 in the shootout at home on November 28th. Avalanche won 5-1 on the road on December 21st. Wild won 5-2 on the road on February 26th. And the Avalanche won 3-2 in the shootout at home on March the 8th. This will be a tight contested, well, maybe not contested, but a tight, entertaining series nonetheless. If you're looking for the biggest edge in the series, it's Colorado's top end talent with Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar, Gabriel Landeskog, Devon like they're everywhere. And they can take over games too. They also had success in the regular season matchup as well, with Nathan MacKinnon alone having 7 points in 4 of those games. And when Colorado gets that offense rolling, they're almost impossible to slow down. For the Wild, like I said, they're built on depth and they're built on balance and they built on counterattack skills. So they don't just rely on 1 or 2 stars. They come at you in all different ways, all different angles. Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Boley, Quinn Hughes, Brock Faber, so much more stars I can name. The list goes on and on. Man, with those guys, that can probably win you a playoff series if you have all that depth on your team. That's how they beat Dallas in round one and how they were able to make that game one. Very interesting. Goaltending matchup for this will most likely be Scott Wedgwood versus Jesper Wallstedt. But I think the biggest key factor and real deciding factor in this series will be the defense. Now, both teams' defense are stacked. No question about it. Like they are stacked. Show you guys though. So let me stop sharing my screen and kind of show you guys what the defense for both of these teams are. Look, because it is a stacked defense. Let's go with Colorado first, since they took game one. So she go to daily face-off line combinations. Take a look at that defense. That is stacked, especially the top two pairing of Devon Tage and Cale Makar. I think the bottom four is solid, but it's not as good as that top defensive pairing. Now, if you go to Minnesota side, if I can stop doing that. Go down the list. Uh, if you go to Minnesota side, they already have, I think, maybe I don't want to say better defense because both defensive pairings are really good, but I think the Colorado Avalanche have a solid top four. I mean, not a solid bottom four, I should say. A solid bottom four, and then that top defensive pairing between Devon Tage and Cale Makar is absolutely stacked. But then after that for them, it's not really that much. For the Wild, though, they have a good defensive pairing. I think if they can just slow down Cale Makar on defense, because Cale Makar, like Quinn Hughes, is a offensive defenseman. So if the Wild can just slow him down and stay on McKinnon and those other top guys, I think they might have a fair chance of winning that series. Who knows? We'll just have to see. Um, but yeah, I think it's all going to come down to how will the defense look for both sides against the um, against each other when they take on each other throughout the series. So both teams showed defensive breakdowns in game one. It was odd man rushes, open looks, missed coverage. At some point, one of those teams is going to have to tighten up because you can't just give up 5, 6, 7 goals every night and expect to survive a playoff series. And another thing to expect from this is the momentum swings. I mean, we saw it in game one already. Huge runs from both sides, and given how evenly matched these teams are, that's probably going to continue. This doesn't feel like a series when one team dominates. It's more of a back and forth battle where every game looks different. To me, this kind of feels like David versus Goliath almost um, in this series. One final takeaway: this series, just like in game one set the tone of what we can anticipate or expect from this series. So I can see the series being a high scoring, just like we saw in game one, and putting on highlight reel plays, just like we saw in game one. That one-handed goal from Latimer to a second that we've seen him do a few times in his career already. That is a highlight reel play that we saw. We could see more of that as the series goes on. But throughout the series, both teams are going to have to adjust to their game. Who tightens up defensively? Who gets those key saves? Who capitalizes in the biggest moments? Who has those executions locked in? So I think that's all going to depend on some things to watch and who can come out with the win in the series. But overall thoughts, though, this is going to be the most fun, entertaining series to watch in the second round in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's already better than the Golden Knights and Ducks, Hurricanes and Flyers, and even Sabres and Canadiens. I think Sabres Canadiens is the second best series of the second round, but the top series that most fans I feel like are going to watch is the Colorado Avalanche and the Minnesota Wild. So that's going to be one heck of a series to watch. And with that being said, I got the Avalanche winning in 7 games. So Avalanche in 6. I mean, not 6, 7. Avalanche in 7, and the Ducks in 6. So that's my predictions for the Western Conference. But now let's move on to the final game, and that is the Hurricanes and Flyers. They already played game one on Saturday, which the Hurricanes won 3-0. So they take game one of this best of 7 series. This will be the first time that the Canes will take on the Flyers in the Stanley Cup playoffs. How these two teams got to this point, the Hurricanes swept the Senators, while the Flyers beat their longtime division and arch rivals in the Pittsburgh Penguins in 6 games. And like I said, Carolina took game one of this series 3-0. They lead this best of 7 series 1-0, in which they scored early. They controlled play, never let their foot off the gas pedal, and never let Philadelphia have a little bit of a chance to get into this game. And fun fact, the Hurricanes have not trailed at any point in the 2026 Stanley Cup playoffs. They swept round one, and they are now 5-0 in the postseason. So that level of dominance kind of shows a team playing near perfect hockey. Structurally, they're not just winning, but they're also controlling games from start to finish. And I think the identity for the Canes starts with their defense. They forecheck aggressively, they limit the space, and they make it incredibly hard to generate quality scoring chances. Philadelphia was just held at 19 shots in game one, and they had very little sustained pressure in that series. It's not just the game. It's not just this game in particular. Carolina's penalty kill has been elite too. We kind of seen that in seasons before, but in the playoffs so far, they only killed 24 of the 25 chances in these Stanley Cup playoffs. So if you're the Flyers, you're not just trying to score, but you're also trying to solve the Kane system and try, throw them off the game a little bit. And they were honest with themselves after game one. They said it themselves. They weren't good enough. They struggled to generate offense, but didn't establish a forechecking game. They spent too much time defending, and they let Carolina run away with this game. And when you do that against a team like Carolina, um, not going to win hockey games that way. So the next thing for Philadelphia, if they want to make this a series, and I know that they can make it a series, um, even with a team like the Carolina Hurricanes. In fact, this was the team that they beat to clinch the Stanley Cup playoffs. They got the 2 points in the regular season. I think this was a shootout win for the Flyers against the Hurricanes and for them to clinch the Stanley Cup playoffs. So they can definitely make this a series for sure. And I never doubted this team. Ever since the season has started, I always knew the Flyers to make the playoffs and wished them nothing but the best for them. So not doubting the Flyers, but if they want to make this a series, and I know that they will, they're going to have to up their forechecking game. They have to disrupt Carolina's breakout and force those turnovers because if they let Carolina move the puck too clean, the Hurricanes will just control the game again, and they might take over this series. Um, so Flyers going to have to up their forechecking game if they want to make this a series. Goaltending matchup could most likely be Freddie Anderson versus Dan Vladar. And Dan Vladar has had an excellent playoff performance so far. Game one was not his night, but if Philly wants to stay in the series, he probably needs to be more solid in the crease. And he needs to steal game. Game two might be an important game for Philly to win tonight to make this a 1-1 series, heading back home for game three on, I think game three of that series will be on Thursday. Game three of that series will be on Thursday for you guys to watch. But yeah, goaltending matchup will be most likely be Dan Vladar versus Freddie Anderson. We already talked about Dan Vladar. Let's talk about Freddie Anderson. So Freddie Anderson, he's been on top of his game. He's had multiple shutouts this postseason, including game one. He looks completely locked in, and when you combine elite structure with elite goaltending, that's when teams become really hard to beat. The experience gap for these teams is Carolina has been through some deep playoff runs, some of them being all the way to the conference finals. They could even make the Stanley Cup finals this year. Who knows? So they know how to manage the games. They know how to protect the leads. They know how to stay disciplined. For the Flyers, they're a young underdog team that's up in a big competition against a powerhouse Stanley Cup contender like the Carolina Hurricanes. But like I said, don't count the Flyers out yet, though. This is a team that has shown resilience in round one. And I think they showed resilience all season long, especially after the Olympic break. They faced adversity before, so they've been through this road before, and they still found a way to win some hockey games. So they've proven that they can adjust. But the question is, can they adjust fast enough against a team like Carolina? They might can, but we'll just have to see. What to expect going forward? Could probably expect low scoring games, maybe tight structure. Um, and yeah, just probably low scoring games. Probably won't be that much in this series. It's not going to be like the Colorado Avalanche and the Minnesota Wild playoff series. But for the big takeaway, though, if Carolina keeps playing like this, they might not just be able to win the series, but they might be the most complete team in the playoffs right now. For the Flyers, they just need to throw the Hurricanes off their game, kind of disrupt the system and win it a little bit, win the forechecking battles, and find a way to make this a series. But with that being said, I am taking the Hurricanes to win in 6 games. For the Canadiens, I would predict that they'll win in 7 games. All right, now we got the conference finals between the Colorado Avalanche and the Anaheim Ducks. So I don't know if these two teams ever squared off before in the conference finals. I don't think they have. So this will be the first time that they are squaring off in the conference finals if it does happen. Um, it's going to be a good matchup for sure. Colorado and Anaheim going at it. But I'm going to go with the Avs to win that series against the Anaheim Ducks. And then we got the Montreal Canadiens taking on the Carolina Hurricanes in the conference finals. So Montreal, they like to play the underdog. They really do. The underdog fits well for them. They like to play the underdog, but I kind of did predict Carolina could make the Stanley Cup final this year. I think at the start of the season as well. Would love to see that if it happens. I think on my playoff bracket for the first round, Stanley Cup playoff bracket, I did say Carolina and Colorado in the Stanley Cup finals. And I think that's going to pretty much well be it. So Colorado and Carolina in the Stanley Cup Finals. And I got the Avalanche winning. I know that they will be the first team to win the President's Trophy and to win the Stanley Cup since the Chicago Blackhawks got it done in 2013. So I'm still sticking with the Avalanche to win the President's Trophy and to win the Stanley Cup. This is my second round Stanley Cup playoff bracket. Let me know what you guys think in the description. For those listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other audio platforms, you can head over to YouTube and check out the actual bracket for yourselves. In case you weren't able to keep up with what I was saying for each series and what my predictions were. But yeah, this is it right here. This is my second round, second chance Stanley Cup playoff bracket. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. You can, whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me, if you want to chirp me even, because I know I kind of said some stuff that you guys might want to chirp me up. You're welcome to throw that in the comments if you want to. I don't care. But yeah, this is it. Let me know if you guys agree with this or not, or if you want to share your second round Stanley Cup playoff prediction in the comments. Go right ahead. All right, we got 2 Stanley Cup playoff games on the slate for today. We got game 2 of the second round between the Philadelphia Flyers and the Carolina Hurricanes coming on at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. This will air on ESPN for you guys to watch. Carolina leads this best of 7 series 1-0, and they won game 1 already 3-0 as well. So they're in a good spot heading into game 2. For the Flyers, they probably might need to win game 2 to make this interesting series heading back to Philly for game 3 on Thursday. So I think the Flyers need this one more than the Hurricanes do. So we'll see what happens. The Anaheim Ducks and the Vegas Golden Knights kick off their second round series today at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. So game one of the second round between the Anaheim Ducks and Vegas Golden Knights will come on at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. This will air on ESPN. The first playoff meeting for them. So can't wait to watch that series get underway. Also, the NHL Draft Lottery is tomorrow, May 5th. I think this will be at 6 o'clock p.m. on ESPN. And I think they will conduct the draft lottery balls and stuff at the NHL Network studios in New Jersey. As a Blackhawks fan, hopefully this is the last time we get to be in this conversation. And also, hopefully we can get that first overall pick in draft, Gavin McKenna. So I'm very interested to see how this will be out, how this will play out, excuse me. I'm sorry, guys. I got exams. I'm worried about. So that's probably why I'm kind of stuttering and kind of talking this slow for today. Because usually I'm energetic. I felt like I was energetic in this episode, but it's exams and the schoolwork in this final week of the spring semester that is getting to my head. So that's kind of why I'm kind of stuttering a lot like this. Um, but I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I'm pretty sure you guys already seen this already. I already showed it for the past few minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in already. Really do appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure to follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. We are with you every Tuesday, even though today's a Monday, but just wanted to give out my second round playoff predictions since the NHL opened up that bracket. But we are with you every Tuesday and Thursday from 1:30 to 2 o'clock p.m. Central Time, and then 2:30 p.m. 3 o'clock p.m. each time. So make sure to hit that follow button, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell button so you can stay up to date on the latest episodes of the Hockey Talk TG podcast and the latest hockey news going around the league. Both of you guys have a great rest of your day. Keep God first as always. Be blessed. I'll see you guys next time for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Take care.